And I'm saying okay on my end.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Applewhite. We're opening up the Differently Abled Network meeting today. And we were having a meeting about what it is this weekend, the Memorial Day weekend. It's a weekend of mourning for many people. It's a weekend of grief for many people. But there's something that I wanted to share because of the recent murder of my daughter and her passing that made me think and kind of like associate the grief and mourning that many people are having, and that maybe this might lift people up a little bit on Memorial Day. You see, there's all kinds of things going on this Memorial Day weekend, as we know, but most people do the barbecue thing and they're partying, okay? Which nothing wrong with that. Dr. Applewhite loves a good party, okay? And the party can be anything from just having a group of people over and watching a movie or playing a game. I call that a party too, okay? But then a lot of people just forget about what Memorial Day is all about. And it's about recognizing the lives that have passed. But for us at the White Apple Institute, we recognize also the lives that are past, but the lives that are in trouble right now, that are in crisis right now, that we have veterans right now who are unfortunately having ideas of suicide. And some of them are just leaving active duty. So, you know, they keep on saying a lot of the statistics that we're talking about older veterans, those that have served in the Vietnam War, but we're also talking about those who had to leave Afghanistan suddenly and sometimes with their heads down, okay? So the grief and the mourning goes on and on and on. And so I've been intrigued by this word memorial and, of course, the word death because of my own personal experience and the experience of all of you, okay? I'm sure somewhere along the line, the word death has touched you. What does memorial mean? We have someone online right now, Bobby, who's one of our community business partners who'd love to share right now what the word memorial is. I kind of like ran that by her and asked her to define it. How's it defined in the dictionary, Bobby?
It is Memorial Day is defined. This Memorial Day, we honor the brave women and men who made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation's freedom. We recommit to keeping our scarred obligation to their survivors, families, and caregivers, is what Memorial Day means.
Wow, wow, wow. That's so, when you think about that, I mean, what did you feel when you were reading that? I mean, I know, go ahead.
A sense of pride. Because I have family members that were in the armed forces.
Yes.
And it gives me the understanding that without their sacrifice, we wouldn't have the freedoms we have today.
Yes, that's right. And those sacrifices, and I don't mean, and I hope it doesn't sound like I'm taking any thunder or lightning or joy away from the fact of the mourning of people who have passed on. I hope that by bringing attention to those who are right at the edge right now, okay, that maybe there's a possibility that people can look at those underserved veterans right now.
Right. And just remember that they went through such traumatic things during the time of war that they may not be able to be open to talking about it because it's to the point it's so bad that they just want to shut down. But I would like to say to all of the military veterans out there, thank you for your service and thank you for your sacrifice for my freedoms and my family's freedoms. And I truly, truly thank you, and God bless you all for your service.
Thank you so much. And, you know, I love the way you found a definition that included women and men. And thank you for your emotions there. Your emotions are just, I thank you. Okay. And I believe that there are many people who feel that way, who know that. We have a caller online. Shar, did you have anything to say about the word memorial in itself, or we have you on right now?
You know, my dad was a retired lieutenant colonel from World War II. And I remember growing up when he used to go to reserve meetings, and my mom would iron his uniform and he'd polish his shoes and everything. And this was besides being a professional pharmacist, where she always took care of his uniform, you know, and ironed it every week. But
oh, wow.
To the reserve meetings, because he was, and I asked him one time, which career was he most proud of? His Army career, where he was retired lieutenant colonel and director of transportation, or was it his pharmacy career? And you know what he said?
What?
His military career.
Wow.
So I always remember my dad on Memorial Day, and I especially, well, I remember him every day because we were so close, but I honor him on Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And that's why I have full respect for veterans, because I do realize all the sacrifices that they've made. And like when I would try to get my dad to talk about some of his experiences, just like Bob was saying, he couldn't do it. I have pictures and pictures and pictures, a lot of postcards, because they weren't allowed to take pictures in World War II, very limited. But I wanted to try to get him to try to put all the postcards together and put them in a chronological order of all of his experiences.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Where is that? Did you ever accomplish that?
No, I kept asking him to come over, Apple. I mean, we'd get together once a week, and I'd show him the pictures, I'd show him the cards, and I'd say, Daddy, please, if you could get this all together for us kids, we would, you know, we'd love to have it. And he just could not bring himself to walk through them. And I mean, I could look at the pictures, the postcards, and I could look on the back and say, okay, that's France, or that's Switzerland, or wherever. But I don't know though. I do have the order. I will say that. He wrote down his chronological history from where he started in Wyoming and where he ended up. And
well, you know,
France, and he stayed another year because they asked him if he had that opportunity. And he even went 5 years because he was that committed and dedicated.
And your father has passed on now, but still, here you are honoring him on Memorial Day, even though Memorial Day weekend, even though he didn't die in combat. Okay, and with all accolades for those who died in combat, I mean, we really want to give recognition, but we also don't want to forget those who are in combat right now, right in their own personal life. That your dad, whatever trauma he was unable to speak of, it must have been so traumatic for him and so hurtful. And so those are the ones that we don't want to forget either on Memorial Day, because we would like to say that they did not pass away because they didn't understand how beautiful what they did in this life was. Thank you for sharing about your father saying that the military was his best time in his life. Bobby, you acted like you had some.
Both careers, pharmacy and the military, which was, you know, because I always tried to give him praise and respect, Dr. Apple. And I said, Daddy, not everybody has 2 careers. Which career is more important to you? Without hesitation, it was the military. He asked Dr. Apple, and I'm being open and honest, he asked to be buried in his Army uniform.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, both my dad and my stepfather are both buried at VA.
Power of attorney, I had to fight my 2 brothers because they didn't want the uniform on him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something. Were they buried in the national cemeteries?
He could have been there. He could have been buried over at the. What am I trying to think of? No, he wanted to be buried in a regular cemetery because that was where my mom was buried.
Okay. Okay, I understand that.
They're the same grave.
I understand that. You know, interestingly, I'm being buried next to my husband. But that was only by choice, and the fact that there wasn't another. That we didn't want to make another alternative. There wasn't an alternative from something before. So they actually have a box next to my Jimmy at the VA National Cemetery, and both my father and stepfather are buried there. I don't know if you were able to hear that. I know there's a delay in, so please apologize if I overtalk you. I didn't mean to do that. Bobby, you had something that you wanted to say. I through all of that, I could just tell.
I just, it's for me, as my husband was in the military and he served during peacetime, for me, just to hear, like his experiences at boot camp and what he went through, and then my daughter, Tiana, served in the Army, and what she went through, it makes me so proud because of the fact that they were willing to sign their name on that dotted line and saying, yes, I got your 6. And
now, go ahead, please.
And to me, it's very important because we need to be grateful for the veterans and be understanding of what they actually put online, their life online. It wasn't, they didn't hesitate. They said, I want to do this, and they did it. And for those people to make that decision, to me, that would have been not a hard decision, because I've always loved the military, but to put your name on that line, knowing that you may not come back.
Right. That's, and in saying that, let me just say, as an Army veteran myself, that many people go into the service not recognizing what it really is about when they put their name on that dotted line. Because, I remember I was just sharing with someone just this morning how my first experience of laying in, it was the muddy water, it was a rainy night, and we were going through something called bivouac, which is a training that we go through in boot camp. And I remember being in a position with my M16 rifle and actually thinking to myself, what would I do, of course, if I was in combat situation and I had to actually kill another human being? And I recognized that many of us did not really understand that we are there. Our purpose, being in the military, is to defend our country, of course, to defend our country. But it also is that at the whim of our colonels and our politicians, that we can go to war and be responsible for killing another person. And we have to live with that, and we have to acknowledge that. Don't you agree?
I agree, because my comment was just say that, that must have been really hard for them to make that decision, because, to take somebody else's life, even though they're trying to take ours, that still to me would be the hardest decision, because of the fact that, that's some of the challenges they have when they come home from being overseas, is that they have that person, or that how many people that they had to take their life, not by choice.
Like Dr. Apple and I were talking one time, even though my dad was not in combat, he worked for the Department of Transportation. And what that was for was they transported ammunition to various sites.
Right.
Wow.
So even though he didn't participate in combat, like Apple told me, he saw it.
That's right.
And that's why I think it was so hard for me to get him to, leave a memoir and put his photos together.
Yes.
He just could not do it.
Right. And I think, and I also agree with you that I think that even though that they don't see it overseas, that it still affects them whether they're stateside or not, because
That's right.
Because they still have, maybe some of their family went overseas, or some of their friends, some of
Yes.
their brothers or sisters, you know, and we tend to forget that it's not just, it doesn't just affect those people overseas, it affects their families.
Yes, it affects their families. Everybody is affected. And I want to say, as we're moving towards closure here, and the poem that I definitely am going to read to everybody, and hopefully that this Memorial Day weekend will brighten up some spirits, but also bring some reality to what do we think about death. But before I do, I just want to acknowledge again that the soldiers table, the empty soldiers table, everyone is doing that. And we just didn't want to do that today. Although we acknowledge the table where our dear soldiers would have sat and had a glass of wine and eaten, and we acknowledge all of the symbolism of that particular image. But I wanted to bring out another image, and that's the image of, again, today, that I know that the brothers and sisters that lost their lives in combat, or related combat situations, that I know, I feel that I speak for them, that it's not about going out and shooting up like some cowboy, okay? It's a responsibility that once you're really there and you recognize that you're really going to take someone else's life, okay, that in itself is traumatic for the most human beings. And and the human beings that it's not traumatic for, they're not the ones who would enjoy being part of the Differently Able Network meeting, okay? Because the Differently Able Network meeting was developed by White Apple Institute about love and about sending a message about restoring hope. And that's what we hope, that just the three of us today and the few people that are online also, that we are actually acknowledging. So right now, is there anything else that you wanted to say in closing that you'd like to say for our veterans today? Anybody online there? Okay. So I would like to read this poem. Oh, I'm sorry. Was there somebody?
All I wanted to say is God bless to all the military veterans and their families. And thank you so much for your sacrifice.
I mean, the other day, I used public transportation, and the other day, I had the privilege of having a driver that was an Army veteran. He had a jacket on that said that, and so I was quick to recognize it and say thank you. So I'm with you. Bobby, I try to say thank you every chance I can.
Oh, I do it too. I see them in the stores. I see them walking and in the doctor's office, and I always, thank them for their service, for their sacrifice for our freedom. And
there's a reason why they even identify themselves, and even myself, when I wear anything, my hat with the medals or whatever, when you're symbolizing your pride in what you served and how you served. And so thank you so much, because I myself, and as our caller Shar was bringing out, we had that conversation about the support systems, the non-combat positions, and how important they are, that they sign that blank check to. And at any moment, boom, just like that, you can be called to the front lines. And we're in a situation now, we have wars breaking out everywhere. And so we want to make sure that the next Memorial Day, that we acknowledge that death is nothing at all. And when I say death is nothing at all, I'm getting into the title of this poem. And it actually was a sermon that was given a long time ago. And the author of this is, let me read the author's name here. I'm sorry, he said this was written based on a sermon given at St. Paul's Cathedral following the death of King Edward VII. Death is nothing at all. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away to the next room. I am I, and you are you, whatever we were to each other, that we still are. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way, which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity, being solemn or in sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes we enjoyed together. Play and smile and think of me. Pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effect, without the trace of a shadow on it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same that it ever was. There is absolute, unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of your mind because I am out of your sight? Hello. Why should I be out of your mind because I am out of your sight? I am but waiting for you, for an interval somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well.
That was an awesome poem.
At that moment.
Beautiful. It's very comforting. I felt like it was my dad speaking to me.
Absolutely. And I hope that everyone that hears this podcast will understand that we already did the numbers of people that are coming to us. We still have a number of people that call us every day. They're in crisis of mostly homelessness, joblessness, and we're trying to restore their hope. We need your donation. Your donation is going to help us to continue operating. Your donation helps us to, when we call other agencies and they tell us that there's a student or someone who is in the workforce and losing their job because they can't get there for transportation, that's when we kick in and we connect them to resources or we provide monies that you have sent in to us. So please continue. If you are a potential donor right now and you'd like to know more about us, please go to our website at www.whiteappleinstitute.org and learn a little bit more about us so that you can write that. Oh, not a blank check. Don't write a blank check. We'll take advantage of that. I promise you. Okay. Thank you very much for being with us today at the Differently Able Network. This is May 26th, 2024, and it's Memorial Day weekend, and we're honoring and recognizing all veterans. Okay. Thank you. I love you. This is Dr. Applewhite signing out. Stop recording.